Hey guys, Jesse here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the HG EO Frame Shiden. And if you're familiar with the kit, you'll probably realize that mine isn't your normal out-of-box build. This is a fully painted and somewhat customized, hint hint, version of the EO Frame Shiden, which I'm calling the EO Frame Shiden Half Cannon, sort of in commemoration of Bandai releasing the Zaku Half Cannon. So this kit was originally sent to me by the Gauntlet collective to just snap up and review, but I decided to use it as a guinea pig for testing Tamiya paints, which I'll be using to paint up my MG Alex. I just kind of wanted to get familiar with the paint, see any sort of quirks it may have, and I'll talk about it here in a second, but I just started using it as a guinea pig, and then I really started to like what I was doing with the kit, so I kind of went all out, and this is what we have here. So go ahead and check out the Gauntlet collective down below in the link in the description. So let's just go ahead and get this guy spinning, and I'll talk about the paint job. So as I said, I used a little bit of Tamiya paint. I only used one, but let's just go ahead and go through the colors that I used. For the darker green, I used Vallejo's olive green. This is a really nice deep green. It's a great replacement for British green if you're looking for one, so that's what I use for the darker green. For the lighter green that you see on the chest and the feet and some other parts, I used yellow olive, also a great militaristic green if you're looking for that. And for the frame, I used Tamiya's X10 gunmetal. This is the only Tamiya paint I used. And I have to say, guys, Tamiya shit is the shit. Oh man, this just went through the airbrush so smooth. They used up such little paint for such a nice coat. Oh, it was amazing. It has to be thinned 2 parts paint to 1 part thinner, but man, once you've made a batch, it's gonna last you forever. So I still have leftover to use for my Alex, which I'm pretty excited about. But in any case, yeah, go ahead and pick up yourself some Tamiya paints. They're great. I know I'm gonna be picking up more. And for a couple of the weapons, I used Burnt Umber. I really like this color, but you'll see when I get to the weapons what I think about how it came out. I like how they came out, but we'll talk about it. But onto the kit itself. So yeah, the original concept for this kit was it was just supposed to be a forest custom. I was just going to call it the EO Frame Shiden Forest unit, but I kind of had a spark, well, okay, more like a fizzle of creativity, and decided to put that cannon on the shoulder, because if the Zaku cannon can look tough with a cannon coming over its shoulder, then why can't the EO Frame Shiden, right? And I was right. It does look awesome with a cannon going over its shoulder. I won't tell you what that cannon is from. I'll let you guys guess in the comments below, and whoever gets the guess right first, I'll pin your comment, so say something snarky afterwards. But yeah, I just found it in my spare parts bin and found a little connector piece. These holes are all 3mm for anyone who's wondering, and that just almost all HG's connection points are 3mm. So I just kind of found that joint and modified it to work with this cannon. It can pivot up and down and left and right. The one thing I'm not really satisfied with this cannon is that when it's in stored mode, it points up way too high, but honestly I'm going to be displaying it with its cannon always facing forward, so it's not a big deal, but I guess I could have found a way to make it pivot down better. But yeah, the reason why I decided to give it the cannon was because it comes with, there's this little connector piece you can see on the backpack there. It's used to hold one of the weapons, but you get 2 of them, and they tell you to put one on either side, but you only get 1 weapon that it can hold, so I thought it looked pretty empty on one side. I might as well put a big ass cannon on that side, so hey, it worked out. In terms of the paint finish and how I did okay. I think it came out nice in the end, but there are some tonal differences that you'll see throughout the kit, and that's not supposed to be that way. It's very apparent on the head, which when we get closer I'll point out, but that's me either putting too many coats on or not enough coats. I can sort of pass it off as the paint is fading off of the mobile suit, but that's not really true. That's just me lying to you. And in some places, very few places, it's a little thick. Otherwise, yeah, I still have a lot of improvements I need to do in terms of painting. But otherwise, I think it came out pretty good. But yeah, after I painted everything, I did a dry brush of silver, as you can see on the green, and did a dry brush of black for the gunmetal because silver doesn't really show up on gunmetal very well. Then I took a fan brush with some watered down brown paint and just sort of lightly stroked the model to give it streaks. And I did a little heavier on the legs because the concept for this, for me, is that in terms of the story behind the suit, is that it's been trudging around the forest while it was raining for like a couple of days, and now this is how it looks after a day of no rain. So you kind of have all these dirt streak stains from the rain. It's kind of like when you drive your car in the rain for a day and then you don't drive it the next day and it kind of has like crap and dirt all over it. So I went a little heavier on the legs because as the water would trickle down through the suit, it would bring a whole lot more crap and junk near the bottom. So that's why I went heavier on the legs, and I quite liked the effect. Then I did a little bit of mud splatter on the feet because it wet and dirty down there. Giggity. Any case, that's pretty much it. I did a little bit of detail painting on the face and the pistons and the rivets and crap, but otherwise, that's all I did for this paint job and custom. And I really like how it came out. So let's go ahead and stop it here, and I'll talk more about the suit in a review sense. So the EO frame Shiden, many people suspect it was Bandai's way of combating Kotobukiya's frame arms, and I can really see why people think that. It really does look like a frame arms kit. But I still really like the design. It doesn't stop it from looking awesome. This is definitely the IBO version of the gym, no doubt. It looks like the gym. It smells like the gym. It is the gym. The strange thing about this, in my opinion, is that on the face, mine's a little different. So the visor is supposed to be down in its sort of normal mode, and then this is its targeting mode, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Usually you put the visor down in front of your scope to give yourself another scope to target better. I don't know. It just seems a bit backwards for me. But in any case, this piece slides in there so tight. The fit is so perfect that even the smallest layer of paint like I have here will be too thick. So when I pushed this in, it just absolutely obliterated my paint. And when I pushed it down to cover the mono or whatever, that eye, the triangle eye in there, it just scraped the entire like rail that it slides on. So if you're painting this kit, you just kind of have to decide if you want the visor up or down, because once you put in that like visor piece, say goodbye to your paint. I like it with the visor up, so I did that, and I just sort of fixed the paint on the inside with some hand painting. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're painting. And also, if you're not familiar with the kit and you want to know what the original colors look like, this is what they look like. It's this sort of burgundy with this weird kind of tan. I actually quite like that tan. I was thinking about keeping it, but I decided to change it. So I'm a fan of these colors. I just wanted a different color scheme. So looks good. There's my boy Hush. Shh. But I do have one problem with the colors. Whoever at Bandai keeps approving of this stupid lavender for frame color just needs to be put down because it looks awful. Nothing, metal or when you think inner frame, you don't think that color, Bandai. So please stop. Don't make that lavender ever again. And what's worse is the polycaps are molded in that colors, and you can't really paint polycaps. So on my kit, I have like in small little places you can see just peaks of that color, and it makes me angry every time I see it. But aside from that, the kit looks great. The proportions are awesome. Looks just like the line art, and yeah, I just overall really love the design of the EO frame Shiden. The one place I don't really like are the feet. I'm not really a big fan of the tippy toes or the heels. Just kind of wish it was just flat, but otherwise, yeah, great design. So moving on to the build. It has a full inner frame like all the HG IBO kits, and it works out great. In fact, this one is actually a lot more stable and tighter than the other IBO frame or IBO kits that I've built. And I think it's because the pegs and connections are a lot bigger. Like all the ports are bigger, all the pegs are bigger. And I don't think it really has to do, well, my painting did help, but I think even without paint, this would be a far more solid kit than the other IBO kits, just because the connections seem bigger. Otherwise, it was a pretty normal build. You're just slapping armor on the frame, nothing real crazy. There are seams, I'll go ahead and point them out. There was a seam on my gun, which I fixed there. There is a seam on the head here. Here's that tonal difference I was talking about. That green is not supposed to be a different green than that green. But yeah, again, I have places to improve. This is technically a seam, but to be honest, because of this earpiece not having a seam through it, it looks very natural. And so I just left it. You have a seam going over the shoulder, but it's kind of a weird seam just in terms of design. So it doesn't run down the middle of the shoulder. It actually runs like kind of off center over here. And usually when Bandai does that, it's to create a sort of pseudo panel line or to avoid going through some detail, but it goes through all the exact same details if it were like to go down the middle. So I don't get why they did that. You've got seams on the back of the forearms here, although what's kind of strange is you see these two like little black notches. They don't exist on the other side, so usually I would fix this if this was symmetrical, but these are obviously two different like pieces, so they kind of look like two different armor pieces, so I left it. On the back of the legs here, you've got seams there, but again, really looks like panel line detail. Same thing with the front shin here, just kind of looks like a panel line detail, so I left those. Call it lazy, call it what you will, but it's my kit, so I can do what I want. But yeah, I do really think the panel or the seam lines that I left look natural. I don't think you really need to fix those if you don't want to. But the shoulder ones, you definitely should fix. And there's a pretty nasty one on the gun, so that one also needs fixing, but we'll get to that later. Talking about articulation, I'm not actually going to show you too much of it because I don't want to scratch the paint, but just trust me when I say it's good. I mean, you can kind of tell there's almost no hindrance on this thing at all except for my cannon. We'll actually talk about that real quick. As I said, it can pivot up. As you can see, it sticks up way too high, and then it can swivel that way. You have all the great IBO articulation here. An interesting thing about the chest here, though, it has a great bend backwards, but as you can see when you do that, the pin or the pistons look like they're not connected to anything, so it looks really silly. But this little like armor piece here actually is on a hinge, so when you push down, it kind of bulges out, and when you kind of straighten it up, you can push it in to sort of hide it in the shadow there, and I think that's really cool. The knee bend is amazing in terms of its detail, so you can see a lot of nice mechanical detail there, just like the gray Schwab that I looked at earlier. And just overall, the articulation is great. It's amazing. This thing can get into any pose that you want. There we go. I'm struggling just to get it standing because my base isn't flat, so that's not the kit's fault. So moving on to the accessories, we'll start off with the one that I didn't use. So I didn't use the riot shield. I know some of you are saying blasphemy because this thing is awesome, and I agree. It is very awesome, but I just didn't want to use it with this kit. I want to save it for another kit. But as you can see, it's really, really big. It uses this to connect onto here. Then the kit just holds it via this bar, and then this can plug into the side of the arm. There's no pegs in any of the weapons or any of the hands, so it's just off of a tight grip, but it is really tight, so it works well. The weird thing about this piece, though, it seems to have a lot of like mold defects. For one, it has a lot of injection points, as you can see. If you're not familiar with the way these things are molded, you have these injection points where they basically pour in the plastic, and this one just tends to have a lot of them, as you can see. I think it's just because this piece is really big. But as you can see, I have like a weird texture here, and the rest of it's smooth, so I'm not sure what's going on there, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but yeah, there's like weird scratches and kind of just mold defects in this thing. So you're going to probably want to do a lot of sanding on this, as it seems that it's, yeah, I don't get how that could be avoidable. As you can see, you can kind of see the detail poking through there, so it's not completely smooth. So you'll have to sand this thing quite a bit if you want it to look its best, but still, great looking shield. Here's this connector piece I was talking about. As I said, you only get one weapon, so that can be stored with this, so I just didn't paint up the other one. Forgot to mention the stickers. There's only two, one that goes on that mono eye and one that goes on that like triangle eye. So there's that. Don't need those stickers. Next, you get the Spanking Panel, which is a pretty awesome weapon. I really am a big fan of this weapon. This is where I use that burnt umber. And as you can see, I really like how it came out, but it looks a little bit too much like chocolate to me. This thing can extend out. And this is as far as mine will go because I want my kit to use it in its collapse form. When it extends out, it's really long, actually taller than the kit. So I thought that looked a little too ridiculous. But it's supposed to be able to extend further, but the paint's stopping it from doing that. In any case, yep, there's this weapon. Has a little storage point here. So there's a latch on the back skirt that you can open up and then you can store it via that little port. So just did a little bit of dry brushing on this thing, nothing too crazy. Next up is the Gauntlet. I'm a big fan of this thing. I think it looks super cool. Just really like the shape of it. I did a little bit of battle damage there. Just plugs onto the arm with this little peg. This 03 is a dry transfer that I just found in my huge bin of decals. Again, looking like chocolate, but yeah, looks good. This thing really reminds me of something out of 8th MS team, which I took a little bit of inspiration from when painting up this guy, but yeah, I just really love the way this gauntlet looks. So I'll be displaying mine with this. And then finally we have the rifle, and yes, that's actually what it's called. It's just called rifle. I really love the design of this weapon. At first I didn't like the backside, and I kind of just wanted to cut it and turn it into this. And I still think that looks really good, so if you think so as well, feel free to steal my idea. But as I looked at this more, it really reminded me of the action off of a Luger, the German like World War II pistol. So if you're unfamiliar with how a Luger works, the firing pin, when it shoots the bullet, right, the firing pin comes back to allow the next bullet to be chambered, and the action is what pulls that firing pin back. And that's that little thing that kind of goes, I don't know, if you play enough Call of Duty, you'll know what I'm talking about, but that really reminded me of that, and I thought that was super cool. I don't know where the cartridge would be ejected on this thing, but yeah, maybe this opens up and then ejects the cartridge, who knows. In any case, it can be stored on the back skirt as well with that little port, and interestingly enough, this is actually the exact same rifle that comes with the Hyakuren, but the connection point is right here. So if you want to mix and match the guns, or if you want to give this gun to the Hyakuren or whatever, they're interchangeable. So, well, in terms of the connection port, I guess any accessory is interchangeable, but you know what I'm saying. In any case, yeah, painted this with gunmetal and just did my weathering on it, and I really like how it came out. So I'll be displaying my kit with this, and I'll be storing the paddle on the backpack there. So, yep. And that's it for the accessories, and that's about it for the EO frame Shiden. I really, really like this kit. I like the way it came out in terms of my paint job. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below of what you guys think of my paint job here. Not much to say about the kit, honestly, just because there isn't much to it. It was 4 runners, and 2 of which were only half runners, so really it was just 3 runners of kit. And but it's, for those 3 runners or so, it's a great kit. I mean, it has great articulation, it looks great, and just allows for so much customization. I mean, you can see all these hard points all over the kit. There's one on each side skirt, on the arms, and on the backpack. So they really encourage you to customize and do something crazy with this kit. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about it. Totally worth the price that I didn't pay for because it was given to me, but I know it's quite a cheap kit. And if you're a fan of the design, you won't be disappointed. So thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all next time. Bye-bye.